Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a video here to talk about a remake, reimagining, readaptation, whatever, of a very beloved Stephen King book that's considered to be his best book by many fans out there. Not so much me, I think it's a little overhyped, but I am a massive fan in a different way. I'll talk about that in a moment. This is the 2020 to 2021 miniseries, limited series, I guess we're calling it now instead of miniseries, but I like miniseries better. The Stand. Now, this premiered on CBS All Access in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic, which was crazy-ass timing with everything going on. So, The Stand here, I'm going to be upfront with you, is one of the most awful, insulting adaptations of Stephen King work ever. It is insane, the choices behind the scenes to make this the way they did. Now, what I want to tell you is that this is the original 1994 miniseries that premiered on TV, and I love it. I love everything about it. I don't care how goofy it is now. I don't care how cheesy it's become. I don't care how some of the CGI, for example, in it, the very limited amount with the budget they had, has become so rough looking over the years. I love this movie so much, matter of fact, that I even have a VHS copy right up there if you can see it in the corner. I love it. I have a Blu-ray copy as well because of how much I love this movie. This is, to me, despite its very small flaws that are more of a situation of time affecting it more than the actual movie's release back in '94 in quality at the time, it is probably in my top 10 films of all time. In a personal way, not so much in an objective filmmaking way, but in a personal taste way. This, to me, is something I put up there with Better Off Dead, my personal favorite comedy of all time. It's a Wonderful Life and Donnie Darko, my two favorite movies of all time. I put this up there because I love it so much. It's not just a post-apocalyptic story, it's very much a Christian story, and being a Christian, it's very effective to me and really hits me in a way that I don't think most Stephen King things can, whether it be in book form, movie form, miniseries form, whatever. And then this piling steamy shit comes along, and it is shockingly awful. Almost in every way. I don't even know where to begin with this. I guess I'll talk about the general plot of The Stand for people who don't know anything about it. The book, I read both versions of, by the way. It is humongous. The original version of the book, which I prefer, is about 850 to 900 pages, depending on what kind of version you read, paperback or hardcover. The one that you would pick up nowadays, and for the last, 30 years, if you go to a Barnes & Noble or something, is the expanded and uncut version, which is closer to 1,100 pages, 1,200 pages, somewhere in there. And I've read both. Like I said, the original version I like a lot better. A lot of the bloat and filler are cut down. It can still be a little slow, though. I don't think it's as effective as the storytelling told in that original movie. By the way, this is a big difference, too. This is a 6-hour movie. This is a 6-hour movie that I love deeply. This is a 9-hour movie. TV show, miniseries, whatever. 9 hours. 8 of those hours telling the same story as this, but in a horrible way, in a non-linear way, which I'll get to in a moment, and they still made it boring and dull, and it never turned out to be good in almost any scene at all, except for this one so bad it's good scene, and that's it. But this is amazing. For 6 hours, they were able to do what they did with 4 parts on a TV movie. The amazing budget they had. It was probably the biggest movie ever made at that point. And then they did this nowadays with all the resources they had. It's a shame. Anyway, The Stand. This movie varies a little bit from the book and the original movie. I don't want to talk too much about that, but I will talk about some of the beginning details of the show. But the general plot of The Stand, to finally get to that, is that basically a massive flu comes out and kills 99.9% of the whole world's population. That flu is called Captain Trips. And the people who have survived that flu, which was a horrible thing to watch in this show, I will say, basically, those people who did survive begin to have dreams of either this old black lady, in this case played by Whoopi Goldberg and not Ruby Dee, like back in the day, sadly, who was named Mother Abigail, who is a Christian woman. And the people who kind of float to her over in Nebraska at one point are typically the God side of this Christian tale. Whereas People also happen to have dreams of this guy named Randall Flagg, the Dark Man, basically the devil, the Antichrist, over in Las Vegas. And if you go to him, you got to go to Las Vegas, and it's kind of a sinful place. There's orgies everywhere, there's drug use and alcoholism and everything. You can kill people and get away with it. You have to do some mild work, and it is Las Vegas, so there's kind of that sin nature in general that is kind of frequently used when people talk about Las Vegas in general, even in our regular world. It's kind of clever how Stephen King did that. But anyway, the people kind of divide up over time. The leftover population, at least as far as we know, of the Earth, or at least here in America. This is a very American tale, and I love that about it. It's a very summertime story, and if you ever watch the original 94 version, this is the time to do it. Right now, in the midst of July, it feels really hot sometimes. It feels like a summer tale with all the traveling and the hiking and the walking you have to watch people do, in a good way, you know? But getting to this version of The Stand, it's a non-linear tale, as I mentioned earlier. Basically, they skip the idea of telling the original book in this reimagining in order of events, from the flu hitting the world to then people finding Mother Abigail, people traveling together or traveling by themselves, people meeting up in Nebraska eventually, and then confronting the Antichrist. And that's basically the general tale of, you know, The Stand, and I love it. This story starts in the dead middle of already having Nebraska settled, trying to remove dead bodies and turn off the power and stuff out there for lights that are still on, trying to make it a small community again. It skipped all the flu stuff, and then we do flashbacks to the old stuff, like previous to this event. Throughout the entire 9 episodes, except for maybe the last one actually, they're jumping back to old things that happened before, flashbacks of old events for each of the kind of characters that we all know and love that are absolutely ruined here. I'll get to that in a moment too. It is a mess, dude. I hate the non-linear storytelling. I don't know who to blame for that. I don't know. It's awful. And if you don't know anything about The Stand, if you go into this never having seen the original movie or read the book or anything like that, you're not going to know a damn thing about what's going on. It's so confusing and messy, and even me knowing this stuff by heart, it feels like a Cliff Notes version of this. It feels like a Wikipedia article, basically, of The Stand. And it's a mess. I don't think anybody could watch this that has no exposure to Stephen King's The Stand and understand and grasp what's going on because of how sloppy and messy and confused it is. This is one of those early shows that came to CBS all streaming, or all access streaming, like the terrible-ass Jordan Peele remake of Twilight Zone. Both of those things are incredibly insulting. They're both awful. I hate them both deeply. You don't understand how bad it is until you witness this. Now, I've seen a lot of people that are hardcore Stan fans, like myself, say that they ditched out on the first episode. They refused to finish watching the show. It's filled with virtue signaling politics. It's ruined character after character. You have a lot of gender-bent stuff. If you love Ralph, a character from the original book and movie, he's not in here. He's a girl now in the story here. If you love the Rat Man, he's a woman too now. It's insulting. I don't understand why you would do that to the source material for the sake of 2020, 2021, whatever, political value. It's stupid. It's stupid. Everything about this particular movie is awful. My biggest complaint, compared to the other complaints I'm even going to get to in a moment, is the casting. This might very well be the most miscast group of people and group of characters ever. Ever, dude. You have basically 2 faces that you'll actually recognize outside of the horrible Whoopi Goldberg. You have Alexander Skarsgård, the brother of Bill Skarsgård, who plays Pennywise the Dancing Clown in the It remakes. He plays Randall Flagg here, and he looks like Randall Flagg. He's not as good as Jamie Sheridan is in the original movie, but he's good here, and I do like him a lot. The problem is, every time Randall Flagg is on the damn screen for you and I, he's floating in front of his penthouse window because he's an evil monster devil dude, magician, whatever you want to call him, wizard, I don't know. And he just floats in front of his window all the time in Las Vegas, and it's so weird. Why is he even doing that? It doesn't make any sense. And James Marsden is in this too, playing Stu Redman, who Gary Sinise played back in the 94 film perfectly, because Gary Sinise just strikes me as a very American America-loving guy that I love deeply. He's a great actor. I adore him. James Marsden, I'm a fan of. He seems like a cool dude. He does a decent job playing Stu. I wish he had the southern redneck accent because he's from Texas. He doesn't have it, and I don't know. But he does okay. A lot of the other casting choices, I feel bad for the actors because they can be good actors and they're in a terrible script with a terrible version of their characters. Larry is a great example here. Larry is basically a ripoff of Gary Clark Jr., the musician in our world. They take his song, Baby Can You Dig Your Man, and take it from like a rock song hit, and Larry being a rock star, to making him a pop star. Like his song, when they play it in here, sounds like a Gary Clark Jr. Crappy version of Gary Clark Jr. because I like his songs. You know, Gary Clark Jr. is a talented guy. This version of him is awful. And the actor, I feel like, got gypped on what he could have actually enjoyed. And it's kind of a shame, to be honest with you. Franny Goldsmith, who is a woman pregnant in the midst of the apocalypse, the actress there could have done a good job. They make Franny even more insufferable here by making her the voice for Nick. And if you don't know who Nick is, he's a deaf mute who can't even talk, you know? In the old book and movie, he writes on a notepad to express his thoughts to people. Here, he just talks in sign language, and Franny can translate to the rest of the group. Why would you take out the purpose of Nick Andros to begin with? It's insulting to me. Tom Cullen, he's a very child-brained man because of some mental disability. They have him using massive words that Tom in the book and original movie would never be able to say because it's not in him, because he's like a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old in the body of a 40-year-old man. It's awful. How did you ruin Tom? I talked about the Rat Man being ruined. At least it's played by Fiona Dourif, who is Brad Dourif's daughter, and she's great in everything I've ever seen her in, but they waste her here. There's so many bad choices. One of the guys from the Naked Brothers band is playing Lloyd Kaufman here, and it's like a cartoon version of Lloyd. I hate it. I absolutely hate it, and the fact that they took my boy Ralph and made him into a girl named like Ray or Roy, who's offended about everything all the time in the show when she's actually there, is insane to me. They ruined this version of The Stand, and the fact that they had this weird choppy storytelling in the editing bay is horrific, to be honest with you. The final offense I have to bring up, because the CGI is not that horrible, it's just kind of okay. The big offense that I have is the soundtrack. If you have ever seen this version of The Stand, you heard so many great songs. I think it was the first time I ever heard that one song. Is it Crowded House that's the band that makes that song? What the hell is that song? You've heard it a million times. It's when Harold and Franny are thinking about the end of the world and playing a record. God, what is that song? Don't Dream It's Over. That's what it is, I think. Anyway, so the actual theme song for this movie is Don't Fear the Reaper. It's played all the time in the film. The melody of Don't Fear the Reaper from Blue Oyster Cult is played to end episodes sometimes. They play that song, and I'm not saying they had to, but they played that song in the new series one time to end an episode off, as a nostalgia thing to people like myself who love this. What in the world were they thinking? The soundtrack here is so bland and bad. I didn't even mention the two worst casting choices. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot about this. Nadine Cross, who is kind of a sketchy chick, is played by Amber Heard. And the way that character eventually goes, for anybody who knows The Stand, knows that that fits Amber Heard, Amber Turd, if you want to call her that, perfectly. Trash Can Man, who I love deeply from the book and the original miniseries, one of my favorite characters from The Stand, is played by Ezra Miller, the Flash, the wacko in Hollywood that just one horrible thing and one horrible story after another seems to be coming out about this creep. Ezra Miller is in this, and he is insufferable here. As bad as Amber Heard is, as bad as Tom Cullen is, as bad as the new Ralph is, dude, he is horrible. He's horrible. They've made Trash Can Man absolutely insufferable, to be honest with you. So anyway, I forgot to mention those. I had to bring those up. But the soundtrack, talking about again, is so forgettable and bad. Most of it is pop music horse shit. It's not The Stand. It's not The Stand, man. Even in '94, Don't Fear the Reaper was not the most popular song ever. It was well known, well regarded, but no one expected King and Mick Garris, who directed the old film, to make that the song for that movie. And it was perfect, you know? This version of The Stand is an insult to anybody who loves The Stand in any format. The original book, the update book, the expanded version, the miniseries from '94, anybody who's a fan of The Stand, even down to the Marvel comics, which I've read, will hate this more than likely. I don't think I've met anybody in person who even tried this. Even people who knew about The Stand in general don't like this and hate it. And I don't blame them, because it's terrible. I finally sat down, watched all 9 hours of this horseshit, and I hated it. I think the most insulting thing is how they kept mentioning when the show was coming out that they were going to change the ending because fans hated the ending or whatever. They didn't even change the part that people were complaining about. No, they copped out and made the final episode written by Stephen King. And it's an expansion past the end of both versions of the book. So you get a little bit more of what Stephen King supposedly wanted to do with Franny and Stu. And that was mildly interesting, and then by the end of it, absolutely awful. It was shockingly bad. So anyway, if you haven't seen this version of The Stand, take my advice, don't watch this. Just read either versions of the book. Watch this wonderful, beautiful, classic movie that I even have in my top 10 movies of all time. Don't waste your time on this. It is insultingly bad. One of the worst movies, shows, limited series I've ever seen. One of the worst Stephen King adaptations ever. I would easily put this in the bottom 10. Down there were things like, you know, the Carrie TV movie and the Carrie remake from, what was it? I think it was a Carrie TV movie in general. I think it was it. Carrie 2 was another one that was pretty rough. The Lawnmower Man, all of that kind of shit. This is down there with that. I'd rather watch Lawnmower Man 1, not so much 2, than sit through this again. You'll never see me talk about this again, aside from when I diss track it over and over again in other videos. So anyway, The Stand 2020 is horrific. I do not recommend it in any way, shape, or form. It's a sloppy piece of shit, and I don't want anybody to have to deal with this, so I figured I'd make the final review 4 years after it came out. So anyway, have you seen this version of The Stand? Who do you think was the worst portrayed character in here? Who do you think was ruined the most? Who do you think was the best cast for this? What do you think was the best moment in here? My personal favorite is when Randall Flagg just breaks out into a dance in Las Vegas in front of his crowd of people, his followers, to a techno version of Time After Time. You talk about cringe? Go look up on YouTube a video called Randall Flagg Dancing and tell me that's not the funniest shit you have ever seen in your life. It doesn't even fit into the tone of the show, dude, but it was one of the cringe-inducing moments from this show that just kept piling upon me as I watched it. How do you make The Stand boring? Remember back in the day, for people who've been following this, I've been waiting for a new version of The Stand since Ben Affleck was involved, before he became Batman. He was going to make a 4-part movie. It was like 2 or 2.5 hours per movie to make The Stand a new adaptation. I would have loved that. That would have been absolutely amazing. And it's sad to me that that never came to fruition. Instead, we got this like 10 years later, and it's horrible. Horrible, horrible. Anyway, what do you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know all that down below. Thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. Catch you later. I'm really behind on reviews, so I have to make a bunch of stuff soon, like today, to get out to you guys. A lot of Quiet Place reviews. Anyway, thank you. God bless you. Catch you later. Goodbye.